What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. And for this week's episode, there's only one thing on the schedule, and that is it. It's the 2023 The Sports Line mock draft. We've got all 32 picks in the first round. We got selections for each one of them. We also have a couple trades in here as well that I think could happen on draft night, or maybe it'll happen a few days before draft night. We will have to wait and see. But when this episode comes out, there's only going to be 2 sleeps until the NFL draft. And so this is the last episode before the draft. I'm going to have another one after probably the entire draft. So I won't have to do one every night, probably just after the entire draft, giving up a big draft recap for the Washington Commanders. But let's just start. The 2023 Sportsline mock draft will start here with the number 1 overall pick. The Carolina Panthers will go ahead and select on Thursday night. They're going to select Bryce Young, the quarterback out of Alabama. I think this is a pretty obvious one at this point. I think he's going to go number 1 overall. That's what I know. When the Panthers first traded for the number 1 overall pick, everyone thought it was going to be C.J. Stroud. But then things have changed. Visits have happened for Stroud and Young. Tests have happened for both of them. And Bryce Young seems to be the pick at number 1 overall for Frank Reich and the Carolina Panthers. So it looks like Bryce Young will be the new franchise quarterback, or attempt to be the new franchise quarterback for Carolina. We'll move on to the number 2 overall pick. The Houston Texans have it, and I know there's been a lot of speculation. Will they trade it away? I know recently Will Levis has become the new front runner in the sports books to go number 2 overall. But in this case, I think this Will Levis thing is not going to happen. It's a smokescreen, because with the number 2 overall pick, the Houston Texans will select Will Anderson Jr., the edge rusher out of Alabama. So Alabama will go 1-2, one on offense, one on defense for the first 2 overall picks in this upcoming draft, in my opinion. I think the Texans, again, you're looking at a quarterback possibly at some point. You've got Will Levis, I guess, or CJ Stroud on the board, but I think DeMeco Ryans, I think this Will Levis stuff is a smokescreen to possibly get the trade back maybe out of that number 2 overall pick. But I think Will Anderson Jr. will be the pick at number 2, and there's a pretty big reason why. I'll get to that though when we get to the 12th overall pick for the Houston Texans. So Will Anderson Jr. at number 2. At number 3, now this is where things start to get really, really spicy. At number 3, the Arizona Cardinals will be trading this pick away to the Tennessee Titans. So this is the first big surprise, you could say, of the of my mock draft. The first 2, Bryce Young, Will Anderson, kind of chalk. But then at number 3, the Tennessee Titans moving up from pick 11 to pick 3. The trade compensation, the Titans will be getting pick number 3. The Cardinals will be getting pick number 11, pick number 41, and next year's first round pick for the Tennessee Titans, which projects to be a pretty high pick. So the Cardinals, who may or may not be without their first round pick next year based on their ownership situation, will at least have the Titans' first round pick for next year. And the Titans this upcoming year are going to be pretty bad. So the Titans will be moving up to number 3. And with the 3rd overall pick, they will be selecting what they believe is going to be their quarterback of the future. And that is the Ohio State man, C.J. Stroud. So Bryce Young at 1, Will Anderson at 2, and C.J. Stroud now to the Titans at number 3. I think Stroud can possibly be the franchise quarterback in Tennessee. I know you have Malik Willis there. Ryan Tannehill, there's been rumors about the Titans possibly cutting him. Ryan Tannehill possibly being on the trading block. I'm going to make a bold prediction right now. I don't think he's on the Titans 53-man roster to begin this season. I think they're either going to cut him or they're going to trade him away to a quarterback needy team, possibly like the Houston Texans. I don't think they would trade it into division to the Houston Texans, but you know what I'm saying, to a team like the Houston Texans who need a quarterback. So the Titans will be selecting what they believe is their quarterback of the future. They selected Malik Willis in the 3rd round last year, but in the 1st round at pick number 3, they're going to trade up for C.J. Stroud. Again, I think the Cardinals will trade out of this pick, whether it be to the Titans or whether it be to another team, possibly maybe the Colts moving up a spot, Lions, Raiders, Falcons, if they want a quarterback moving up to the number 3 overall pick. Maybe another team as well. Maybe the Jets move up there to try and get a quarterback if they're not able to trade for Aaron Rodgers. But yeah, I mean, At number 3, the Cardinals, I'm pretty sure will trade back. I just don't know which team will trade back with the Cardinals, but I think that is going to happen on draft night. So CJ Stroud to the Titans at number 3. At number 4, this pick for the Indianapolis Colts has been one that's been solidified in my brain ever since I first scouted this prospect. At number 4, the Indianapolis Colts will be selecting their, or what they believe is going to be their, franchise quarterback of the future, Will Levis, the quarterback out of Kentucky. So 3 quarterbacks in the first 4 picks. Young going number 1, Stroud going number 3 to the Titans, and now at number 4, Will Levis will be going to the Indianapolis Colts and Shane Steichen. So Will Levis to the Colts has been something in my head. I mean, it just fits. Okay, it just fits. I don't really know how to explain it, but Will Levis to the Colts is like, I mean, the Colts are interested in Will Levis. They've sent their general manager, their Shane Steichen. They've sent a bunch of scouts to his pro day. They've had multiple visits with Will Levis. It just fits. The Colts are gonna. It's like Will Levis. Will Levis, I gave a second round grade on. I am not high on him at all. I don't think he's that great. I think there's a better chance that Anthony Richardson becomes a franchise quarterback than Will Levis. I'd rather choose Anthony Richardson over Will Levis any day of the week. But in this scenario, the Colts seem to be really in love with Will Levis and selecting him at 4. And since Young and Stroud won't be on the board in this scenario at number 4, I have the Colts selecting Will Levis. So Indianapolis gets possibly their franchise quarterback of the future among their division rival who traded up to snag CJ Stroud above them. So Will Levis to the Colts at number 4. And then at number 5, the Seattle Seahawks will be selecting Jalen Carter, the defensive tackle out of Georgia. I switched up my rankings a little bit based on what I had last week. I had Will Anderson, Bijan Robinson, and Jalen Carter as my first 3, as my best 3 players in this draft. I'm actually going to switch that up. I think Jalen Carter is the best prospect in this draft. And even though he's had his off-field issues, which is the reason why I had him at number 3 and not at number 2 or number 1, I think watching this film again, he's the most talented player. I mean, I'm not maybe the most talented, but he's the best player in this draft class, in my opinion. And Jalen Carter is going to make an immediate impact for any team that drafts him. The Seahawks need to redo their defensive line, and I think Jalen Carter can be a big middle piece right in the middle at nose tackle for or defensive tackle for the Seattle Seahawks. So Jalen Carter, in my opinion, is the best player in this draft. I would put Bijan Robinson at 2, and then Will Anderson Jr. at 3. So Carter to the Seahawks at number 5. At number 6, the Detroit Lions are in a scenario right here where they have Anthony Richardson, the most talented quarterback of all time, in my opinion, on the board. And then you have also some corners. You trade away Jeff Okudah for a 5th-round pick to the Atlanta Falcons. So now you have Christian Gonzalez and Devin Witherspoon on the board as well if you want to select one of them. You have Tyree Wilson on the board if you want to pair up as a guy that can play both inside and outside on the defensive line. If you want to pair him up with Aiden Hutchinson, you have many options here at 6 if you're the Detroit Lions. The option that I think they're going to go with the 6th overall pick, the Detroit Lions will select Anthony Richardson, the quarterback out of Florida. So the four best quarterbacks in this draft all go in the top 6, including one team having the trade up for CJ Stroud. But Anthony Richardson falling to number 6 to the Lions, I think this is the perfect fit. I think Jared Goff only has 1 more year left, maybe 2 more years with Detroit, and you can pretty much have do what you did with Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. You have Alex Smith start for a year, you traded him away, and then you started Patrick Mahomes, your top 10 pick, the year after that, as Patrick Mahomes was a pretty raw prospect coming in, and Anthony Richardson is a pretty raw prospect coming in. So I think you could do the same in Detroit with Anthony Richardson, and I'd love to see it. Richardson, Dan Campbell, the vibes for that team, that would really be America's team right there, the Detroit Lions, if they select Anthony Richardson. So that's who I have at number 6. At number 7, the Las Vegas Raiders will take the first cornerback off the board, and that will be Christian Gonzalez, my favorite corner in this draft class, by a pretty good margin too. So Christian Gonzalez, the corner out of Oregon, I know I talk about him, I feel like every podcast episode, but he's good. He's really, really good. I think yeah, he's definitely going to be in contention, I believe, for defensive rookie of the year with Will Anderson and Jalen Carter. It'll just be interesting to see how many sacks each of Carter and Anderson are going to get. But Christian Gonzalez will definitely be up there in the defensive rookie of the year race. He's going to be a lockdown corner from day one for the Las Vegas Raiders. This Raiders team where their secondary is shambles right now. Really, there's not really anyone in that secondary. You have two good pass rushers and Chandler Jones and Max Crosby, but that secondary has been pretty bad now for the last few years. So bringing in Christian Gonzalez to be a future cornerback one, I think is a great plan for Josh McDaniels and Las Vegas Raiders. Again, personally, I think I've said it before, but Josh McDaniels, I don't think is that great of a head coach, but he's going to go defensive side of the ball here for the Raiders. And so that's the pick at number 7. At number 8, the Atlanta Falcons will sprint up to the podium to draft this man. Yes, you have Grady Jarrett, but when Tyree Wilson falls to you at number 8, you have to sprint up to the podium and select him. I think Wilson can play both inside and outside. I know you got Grady Jarrett there already, but like when you have Tyree Wilson, I think this could definitely, if Tyree Wilson is on the board at 8, I think the Falcons could definitely be receiving some trade calls, the trade back, and I think there might be a chance that they do because you have Grady Jarrett there on that defensive line already, but Tyree Wilson to the Falcons, I'm just imagining that duo of Jarrett and then Wilson on the outside. So yeah, that'd be a great duo. Again, you could go Devon Witherspoon here, but you also just trade for Jeff Okudah from Detroit. So I think the Falcons are pretty much done in possibly selecting a corner in the first round. So I think the Lions could definitely select a corner, but the Lions in their scenario, number 6, have Anthony Richardson on the board, and so they go ahead and select him. And then number 8, the Falcons, you now have 2 corners, AJ Terrell, Jeff Okudah. Maybe you could select Devin Witherspoon in this case, but I went ahead and selected Tyree Wilson, the defensive lineman. He can really play anyone on the defensive line at Texas Tech. So that's the pick at number 8. At number 9, the Chicago Bears. This is one of my most confident picks. If this is the way the board falls, or basically if those 8 players all go in the top 8 or whatever, I'm pretty confident in this pick. The Chicago Bears will select at number 9, Paris Johnson Jr., the offensive tackle out of Ohio State. Now, as some of you may know, I am not high on Paris Johnson Jr. I don't think he's that great. I don't think he's the best tackle in this class. I don't think he's a top 3 tackle in this class. But this is the pick at number 9 for Chicago, and they want a left tackle of the future, so they're just going to take a swing at Paris Johnson, who has, again, a pretty high ceiling, but I just don't think he's going to be able to hit it. We'll have to wait and see, but that's the pick at number 9. At number 10, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Super Bowl champs, again, have 2 picks in the first round, number 10 and then at number 30. But with this number 10 overall pick, this might come as a little bit of a surprise, saying that this guy's going to go kind of high, but I have the Philadelphia Eagles selecting Bijan Robinson, the running back out of Texas, the best running back prospect since Saquon Barkley. Again, if the Eagles don't take him here at 10, I don't think he's going to go until probably 20 plus. So that is something to keep an eye on. The Eagles could possibly trade back if they want to still get Bijan Robinson, because I don't think Bijan Robinson is going to be on the board at number 30 if they want him. But again, 10 is a little high. 30 is pretty low if you want to select Bijan Robinson. So you need to be somewhere in the middle. I have them reaching a little bit. Again, in my opinion, Bijan Robinson is the second best player in this class. But the way people treat running backs now, it's more of a rental, like a 3-year, 4-year rental. And then you don't really give running backs second contracts anymore. Bijan Robinson, there's a pretty good chance he's going to get a second contract, a pretty massive second contract as a running back if he can stay healthy in the NFL, because he's just so good. But most running backs you don't really give a second contract to. So Bijan Robinson to the Eagles at 10. At number 11, this is where the Arizona Cardinals are after Tennessee traded up with Arizona and swapped first-round picks. So the Titans are at number 3, and now the Cardinals are at number 11. And at number 11, the Cardinals are still going to get a very good defensive player. They would have gotten one at number 3 with probably Tyree Wilson or Jalen Carter. but they're still going to get a very good defensive player, and that is going to be Devin Witherspoon, the corner out of Illinois. So Illinois, their secondary last year, they have so many good secondary prospects in their defense, but Devin Witherspoon is by far the best. He is the second best corner in this class, in my opinion, and this is the pick here for Arizona at number 11. Again, they may be losing Buda Baker. They haven't re-signed Byron Murphy, who's currently a free agent. They got Marco Wilson as their starting corner right now, so they're in a pretty bad spot in their secondary. Devin Witherspoon ceilings of being a true cornerback one, dominant cornerback one in the NFL. I think he's the pick here at number 11. So that's the pick for the Cardinals. Moving on to number 12, the Houston Texans, who are back on the clock. They selected Will Anderson with the number 2 overall pick. They have the number 12 from Cleveland, but they will select Jackson Smith-Njigba. They will not go quarterback here. They will instead go wide receiver, and they're going to go with Jackson Smith-Njigba, the wide receiver out of Ohio State. So JSN, he's my my third best wide receiver in this class. I had Zay Flowers as my number 1, and then Jordan Addison as my number 2. So he's my number 3, and I gave him, I think, a high second round grade. I'm not as high on him as a lot of other people. A lot of people have him as their wide receiver 1, but he's my wide receiver 3. I have Zay Flowers and Jordan Addison above him. So Jackson Smith-Njigba will be the pick for the Texans at number 12. They will not go quarterback with either of their first round picks because, in my opinion, I think this Houston Texans team is eyeing a quarterback that's right now in the Bay Area, a guy that has a lot of connections to a lot of coaches in Houston, and that is Trey Lance. So I think the Texans at some point this offseason will trade for Trey Lance, and that is why they're not going to go quarterback here. Instead, they're going to boost the defense and then grab another weapon. Again, John Mechie seems to be back. He is, I believe he's cancer-free now, so that's great. Great news for Houston. So John Mechie will probably be back this season, along with I'm just trying to think. They traded away Brandon Cooks. They really don't have any wide receivers. They got Nico Collins, I think, maybe his contract expired, but they got Chris Moore, I think. It's pretty bad for the wide receivers right now in Houston, so they're going to go with Jackson Smith-Njigba, who can be a great slot receiver, basically a Monroe St. Brown, pretty much. So that's the Texans pick at number 12. At number 13, the Jets, who are on the clock. I know some news came out that they were interested, so that they've started to negotiate again with the Packers for Aaron Rodgers, and I do believe that will happen on draft night. I think they're going to trade for Aaron Rodgers, but I don't think this 13th overall pick will be involved. I think it'll be the 2 second-round picks and maybe something else for Rodgers, but the Jets here, number 13, are going to boost their offensive line, and they're going to select Peter Skoronski, who can play both tackle and guard. Again, he's more projected to be a guard in the NFL, but he can play tackle. He played tackle at Northwestern, so that's the pick at 13 is Peter Skoronski for the Jets. At 14, the Lions are going to trade up with the New England Patriots. The New England Patriots are going to do their classic move, the Belichick Classic, and trade back. And they're going to move down to number 18. So the second trade of this draft, Detroit will move up to pick 14. And in return, the Patriots will be receiving pick 18, pick 55, and pick 159. So those are the 3 picks that New England will be getting back by dropping 4 spots in the draft. So the Lions are on the clock, and they're going to get a edge rusher here, and they're going to go ahead and select a guy who really stood out at the scouting combine, Nolan Smith, the edge rusher out of Georgia. So now you're going to have Aiden Hutchinson on one side. You're going to have Nolan Smith on the other side. Plus, you're still going to have James Houston in there as well. So those are 3 solid edge rushers. Hutchinson, again, a top 2 pick in the draft. And then you have Nolan Smith, another first-round edge rusher. The Lions are going to go back-to-back edge rushers in the first round. And then James Houston, a late-round steal last year for Detroit. So that's the pick at 14. At 15, another edge rusher will go to the Green Bay Packers. And I think this is going to be super funny because this guy should no way be going in the first round, or maybe not even in the second round, maybe late second round, maybe third round probably. but it's Keon White, the edge rusher out of Georgia Tech. So Keon White is a very interesting guy because he surprisingly got invited to Kansas City and will be at the draft in person. So I don't really know. No one really has him in the first round, I would say. Probably second round, maybe third round. But yeah, he got invited to the draft, which usually means that NFL GMs are higher on him than like fans and other people and analysts think that they are. So Keon White is kind of like the Packers that's it kind of fits like the Packers and the picks that they've made in the past and Keon White. So it's kind of a little bit of a questionable pick. I know last year in the first round they selected Quay Walker and Devontae Wyatt. So two Georgia defensive players in the first round last year, and then now they're selecting a Georgia Tech defender in Keon White to boost their pass rush. So a little bit of an interesting pick at 15, which now moves us to number 16, where the Washington Commanders are on the clock. And I want to talk about this pick for a little bit because I think there's a really good chance that Washington trades back on Thursday night during the draft, just like they did last year. I think that Ron Rivera and Martin Mayhew in their like pre-draft press conference that happened last week, I'm pretty sure last Thursday, it was pretty obvious that the Commanders are probably going to trade back unless someone unexpected falls to them at number 16. I think there's a good chance that they trade back, but in this scenario, I think they're going to stay at 16. And in this scenario, they're going to select Deontay Banks, the cornerback out of Maryland, and they're going to select him over Joey Porter Jr. and they're going to select him over guys like Darnell Wright, Osiris Torrance, and some of the other guys. So, but over this last weekend, I've really looked at a ton of cornerback prospects, and Deontay Banks is my cornerback 3, in my opinion. I think he's better than Joey Porter Jr. I wasn't that impressed with Joey Porter Jr. I think Deontay Banks, I'm on that train because seeing him staying in the DMV area from Maryland to and College Park to now Landover, Maryland, and Ashburn. So he's going to be staying in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, and the Commanders here are going to hopefully get a future quarterback 1 out of Deontay Banks. So that's the pick at 16. At number 17, the Pittsburgh Steelers are on the clock, and they're going to select the right tackle out of Tennessee, Darnell Wright. So Darnell Wright goes right after the Commanders pick. I think the Steelers here, they could really go between Joey Porter Jr. and Darnell Wright, but their offensive line is just so treacherous that I think Darnell Wright is the better option. Now, you could get, oh, hey, the Penn State ties. I know last year they selected Kenny Pickett in the first round from Pittsburgh, and now they're staying in Pittsburgh, and I could do that this year too. I know popular pick for a lot of Steelers fans is Joey Porter Jr. because he went to Penn State. But Darnell Wright, they really need to fix their offensive line, and I think offensive line right now is a pretty much a bigger need than that secondary because you still got some guys in that secondary, but their offensive line is pretty bad. And so Darnell Wright, who's really rose up a bunch of people's draft boards recently, and I'd expect him to go within the top 20 picks. It's going to go here at number 17. So Pittsburgh hopefully gets the right tackle, or maybe you move him to left tackle at some point in the future, Darnell Wright. So now we go to pick number 18, where usually the Detroit Lions will be, but in this scenario, the New England Patriots have moved back 4 spots, so they will be picking at number 18, and this is where the Penn State corner will go, Joey Porter Jr. So I think Joey Porter definitely, probably his ceiling to me is pick number 16. I don't think NFL teams are that high on him. I think he's still going to be on the board when Washington selects. I think it's really going to be Joey Porter Jr., Deontay Banks, and maybe Darnell Wright if he's available. I think those are 3 of the guys that Washington will be looking at pick 16. Because if Christian Gonzalez or Devin Witherspoon is on the board, I don't think we're trading back. I think we are selecting one of those 2 guys. So Joey Porter Jr. to the Patriots at number 18. He's finally going to land here. The Patriots, they need help in the secondary. Jalen Mills was not great last year. They got guys like Jonathan Jones, who was a free agent, and Jack Jones as well, who was a rookie last year. So they still need a true cornerback 1, and I think Joey Porter Jr., again, I'm not as high on him as some other people. I have a late first-round grade on him, but he's the pick here at number 18. Moving on to pick number 19, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers need a new left guard or possibly right guard with the exit of Shaq Mason over the last few seasons, or I guess, yeah, after trading him away to the Houston Texans. So they're going to go ahead and select the offensive guard out of Florida, Osiris Torrance, who's one of the most like high floor guys in this draft, in my opinion. Great run blocker, especially if you're going to go into next year with Baker Mayfield as your quarterback. You're going to try and run the football with Rashad White and whoever else. Maybe you draft another running back later on because you no longer have like Leonard Fournette. So Osiris Torrance is the pick for the Bucs at number 19. At number 20, the Seattle Seahawks are back on the clock. They selected Jalen Carter with the 5th overall pick. And right here, they're going to go wide receiver and select Quentin Johnston, the wide receiver out of TCU. So this might come as a little bit of a surprise, him over guys like Zay Flowers and Jordan Addison. But I just feel like Jordan Addison, he's gotten a lot of comparisons to Tyler Lockett, and you already have Tyler Lockett on the Seattle Seahawks. You don't really need him. So Quentin Johnston could be a good guy across from DK Metcalf. You have Tyler Lockett in the slot. Maybe put Quentin Johnston as a slot. You never know. But you need another wide receiver or another weapon for Geno Smith, and that is especially if you go with on the defensive side of the ball and with the number 5 overall pick, or maybe trade back and still get a defensive player. I think the Seahawks go one defense and one offense here. One offensive player in the first round with their 2 first-round picks. So the number 20, that's the pick for the Seahawks, Quentin Johnston. And then we go back-to-back for wide receivers at number 21. The Los Angeles Chargers will finally be getting a great wide receiver, a young, good wide receiver. And in my opinion, he's my wide receiver one, the best wide receiver in this draft class. It's Zay Flowers, the wide receiver out of Boston College. This guy, I love this guy so much. He's what, 5'9", I think, but he's got that deep threat speed. He can go up and catch the football. He's got great route running. I mean, Zay Flowers, in my opinion, is the best wide receiver in this draft class, and I don't really think it's that close. So the Chargers getting him here on number 21 is a huge steal. I think he should go probably somewhere in the teens. But Zay Flowers to the Chargers at number 21. And number 22, why not make it back to back for wide receivers? The Baltimore Ravens will be selecting Jordan Addison, the wide receiver out of USC. So just like Hollywood Brown, Jordan Addison has that deep threat speed for Lamar Jackson. If Lamar Jackson is your quarterback of the future in Baltimore for it moving forward, if you're going to give him a new contract. So Jordan Addison will be the pick for Baltimore at number 22. At number 23, the Minnesota Vikings are on the clock. And I know there's a lot of talk right now about the Vikings possibly selecting Hendon Hooker at number 23. But I just cannot do it. Like, you could tell me that the Vikings 100% will be selecting Hendon Hooker at number 23. I still won't mock them Hendon Hooker because there's no way. To me, Hendon Hooker is a 5th-round prospect. I have a 5th-round grade on him because he's 25. He has a torn ACL. He's not going to start year 1 for whatever team he goes to. So the Vikings here at 23, if they go Hendon Hooker, that would be comedy. But instead, I have him going Brian Brzee, the defensive tackle out of Clemson, a guy who was a pretty much top 10 lock coming into this season, coming into the college football season last year. But in this case, Brian Brzee to the Vikings at number 23, a guy that has a lot of athleticism. He's kind of fallen off draft boards a little bit recently and throughout the draft process this spring. But Brzee to the Vikings at 23 is what I have. So that's the pick for the Vikings. At number 24, we're going to go with another defensive lineman, and that is Lucas Van Ness to the Jacksonville Jaguars. You're going to pair him up with Trayvon Walker on the other side. The Jaguars go back-to-back on edge rushers from last season and this season. So Lucas Van Ness is going to be that guy, or a guy. Again, you're going off of traits here for Lucas Van Ness. He's not really that kind of like high floor guy. It's kind of traits and kind of develop him over the next few years if you're Jacksonville. But they did the same thing last year with Trayvon Walker, and they're hoping for a breakout year for Trayvon Walker. He was not that impressive last season. And they're going to try and do the same thing, get some more pressure on the quarterback with Lucas Van Ness. At number 25, the New York Football Giants are on the clock. And the New York Football Giants in this scenario are going to select Brian Branch, the safety out of Alabama. Brian Branch, the best safety in this class by far. He can play safety, he can play nickel. I've talked about before, he can play like that Buffalo nickel role that Washington had Landon Collins play for a little bit 2 seasons ago. So the Giants, there's not really that many great selections here for them at 25. There's like nothing really for need, especially with Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnson all off the board. It's a little bit too early to draft a guy like Josh Downs or Jonathan Mingo or Xavier Hutchinson maybe, but or Jalen Hyatt. So I wouldn't draft any of those wide receivers this high. So they're gonna go with safety, and they're gonna select Brian Branch here at number 25, and then another NFC East team at number 26, the Dallas Cowboys will select Myles Murphy to try and boost that defensive line. Murphy, similar to his teammate Brian Brzee, was pretty much a top 10, maybe even top 5 lock going into the last college football season. But that Clemson defensive line really did not impress last year. Basically, that Clemson team in general did not really impress besides their run game. But Myles Murphy to the Cowboys at number 26 is kind of like you wouldn't really think of it at number 26, but it's a Jerry Jones pick. And that's what the Cowboys are going to do at 26, in my opinion. Moves us on to number 27, where the Buffalo Bills are on the clock, and they will select Michael Mayer, the tight end out of Notre Dame. So the first tight end gets drafted in this mock draft, and that will be at number 27. So a lot of teams passing up on tight ends. I know the Cowboys could have gone tight end at number 26, especially with Mayer and Kincaid both on the board still. But I think they're going to go with one later on. Michael Mayer will go to the Bills at number 27. 27. I don't think Dawson Knox is going to stop them from selecting a guy like Michael Mayer. But that's the pick at 27. And then at number 28, the Cincinnati Bengals, we have 3 wide receivers going in a row from 21 to 23. And now back-to-back tight ends, 27 and 28. The Bengals will go ahead and select Dalton Kincaid. I think they're going to go, if Mayer or Kincaid is on the board, I think that's a selection for the Bengals here at number 28. I just think, you have Irv Smith as your starting tight end right now, but again, that's not stopping you from drafting a first-round talent like Michael Mayer or Dalton Kincaid in this scenario. So Kincaid is going to go to the Bengals. He's my tight end 1. I didn't really watch any tight ends. I'm kind of just ranked them off of vibes this year, but Kincaid was my tight end 1. And then it was, I believe, Darnell Washington at number 2, and then Michael Mayer at number 3. So those are my rankings based off of vibes, and Dalton Kincaid will be a Bengal at number 28. And so that moves us on to the final 3 picks. Number 29, the New Orleans Saints will select Kalijah Kancey to try and boost that defensive line, that treacherous defensive line, which again was one of the best defensive lines in football 4 years ago. But we gotta remember now, Cam Jordan is like 33 years old. Marcus Davenport is not good anymore. All right. Like that, the defensive line was something that was great 4 years ago or 5 years ago. So they're out of their prime now. Kalijah Kancey, a very small defensive tackle, only 6 feet tall, but or I guess 6'1" actually. I think he grew an inch, 6'1". But again, he's a small defensive tackle, but he's got a whole lot of pass rush moves. He's got good strength as well. So that's what the Saints are going to do here. Number 29 moves us on to number 30, where the Philadelphia Eagles, the NFC champions, are back on the clock earlier on. They selected Bijan Robinson. This time, they're going to go on the defensive side, where they're going to select Adi Tamiwa, Adi Barre, the edge rusher out of, I believe, Northwestern. I could be wrong. I'm blanking right now. I think I'm blanking. Hold on. It's either Northwestern or it is Northwestern. Okay, I was blanking for a second. But yeah, I was confusing him with Felix Anudike-Uzomah out of Kansas State. So the Eagles are going to go with Adi Tamiwa here, and a guy to boost to pass rush. He can play inside, he can play outside. Really can play anywhere similar to Tyree Wilson on that defensive line. And he's going to help this Eagles defensive line, which still got guys like Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, some guys that will be retiring soon. So that's the pick for Philadelphia, number 30. And then the final pick of the first round at number 31, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Super Bowl champions, will be selecting Jahmyr Gibbs, the running back out of Alabama. So Alabama gets they start off the first round with the Alabama player, 2 Alabama players actually, and they cap things off with an Alabama player. 4 Bama players, I believe, being selected in the first round. Bryce Young, Will Anderson, Brian Branch, and Jahmyr Gibbs now. So Gibbs boosts this Chiefs backfield. It has Isaiah Pacheco, but a guy like Gibbs who can spread the field is just like exactly what you need if you want to go back to back, and if you want to win 2 in 4 years or 2 in 5, 2 in 4 years if you're the Chiefs. So that's the pick here for the Chiefs at number 31, and that will wrap up this year's 2023 Sportsline mock draft for this year. So that is it. Bryce Young to the Panthers, Will Anderson to the Texans to start things off, and to cap things off, the Eagles get Adi Tamimwa, Adi Barare, and the Chiefs get Jahmyr Gibbs. Some other highlights of this: Tennessee moving up to number 3 with Arizona to select C.J. Stroud, their possible franchise quarterback of the future. And then Detroit moving up 4 spots to select Nolan Smith, the edge rusher out of Georgia, a guy who really impressed a lot of people at the NFL Scouting Combine. Washington went ahead at 16 and selected Deontay Banks, but again, don't be surprised if they trade down during the actual draft on Thursday night. So I think there's more of a chance that Washington trades down on Thursday night than actually selects a player at number 16. We're just gonna have to wait and see, though. Hopefully Washington makes some good moves on draft night and throughout the entire draft select some good players, because that'll be it for this week's episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders, the entire mock draft for this year. All 31 picks. Again, the Dolphins forfeited theirs because of their ownership situation. So that'll be it for this week's episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. Another episode will be out next week, Tuesday at 9 a.m. See you guys in the next one. Peace.